Rita White. Welcome to the Neuroarchitect.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for inviting me.
Please tell us more about your career path and the motivations behind your focus on biophilia and urban spaces.
So, actually, my motivation behind biophilia started a few years ago. If I have really to think of when it's like the first seed was planted, I might say that at least 15 years ago, more. I was lucky enough to take a course during my psychology degree, bachelor degree program in evolutionary psychology. I really loved that course because it gave me answers to major questions that I had. I chose psychology because I really wanted to know why people behave in a certain way, what leads to certain ways of thinking, to well-being, to behaviors, etc. And through evolutionary psychology, I could really understand the deep roots of certain behaviors or personality patterns, thinking patterns. As human beings, we really adapt constantly, and we have been adapting throughout evolution to our environment. So that was the first seed that was planted. Then a few years later, in 2016, I was working in Singapore for a residency, a program with the National University of Singapore. And you might know that Singapore is the first biophilic city in the world. So as I was working there and going to work at the university in that amazing campus with nature, I was totally inspired by the environment, the nature that was really everywhere on campus. And the way I was thinking, the way I was, like the way my brain was working more productively, more creatively, led me to think, again, that the environment has a huge impact on us, on the way we feel, the way we behave, our productivity, etc. But at the time I was in a clinical psychology path of like professional and also like research path. So since that moment, it was clear to me that clinical psychology lacked something. It lacked an awareness of and a consideration of how the environment actually impacts our well-being, our mental well-being, our physical well-being, our social well-being. And if you think about it, we cannot have a healthy mind in an unhealthy environment, or an environment where there is no nature, an environment where there is no healthy lighting, access to social spaces where people can interact together and with nature as well. So I really, let's say, moved backwards in a way that I started from the basis of well-being. And my career took a different path since then, 2016, since that year. And I moved on to environmental psychology, which is that discipline that looks at how we relate to the environment. So how the environment shapes the way our body feels, our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors, which in turn shape the environment. So we really constantly live an interrelationship with our spaces. So we shaped our spaces and our spaces shape us, as Winston Churchill used to say. So it's almost 10 years now, and another Another important moment was in 2017, as I was working at the Green School in Bali. Green School is a beautiful school built entirely out of bamboo by Buku, a firm which is specialized in bamboo buildings, interiors, and really amazing projects. And I was then I got sick by an illness and I was taken to Singapore once again, and I was admitted into a biophilic hospital for 3 months. It was a bad disease. But living this experience, living in an hospital for 3 months and being able to be so much in contact with nature made me think again that nature has a huge impact on us. On recovery, on emotions, and that I discovered biophilia.
So you discovered it by experiencing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and by this experience, I really felt that I must say this to everyone. Every person should have the right to be hospitalized in a place filled with nature. Everyone should be able to work in contact with nature. Every student should be able to learn surrounded by nature. So this became my mission. So since that year, I have been obviously learning a lot and experiencing a lot through my profession what biophilia and then biophilic design is. Becoming really more and more passionate about these topics, but at the same time aware of how important it is to keep a scientific approach with them. So evolutionary psychology turned out to be the basis of biophilia. So our evolutionary relationship with nature, and environmental psychology, the discipline that studies our relationship with nature in practice. So everything, all the dots came together.
The scientific approach is actually very important because we need research results, we need findings, we need conclusions based on data also. So how can you separate biophilic design from greenwashing?
That's a good question. So biophilic design is an evidence-based practice, first of all. It's not a trend, it's not a philosophy, it's an evidence-based practice. So it's a technical, scientific approach to create spaces, especially indoor spaces, as nowadays we spend at least 90% of our days in indoor spaces. So biophilic design was conceived as a science, interdisciplinary science that takes from neuroscience, environmental medicine, environmental psychology, etc., and brings this knowledge to practice. So it's quite complex because of this, because it requires practitioners to know the science and to apply the science to projects. So that science doesn't always speak an easy language. So like papers oftentimes are difficult, they use technical language. They might be hard to understand also, for like the results they're bringing and limitations, etc. So it's quite important that academics collaborate with practitioners. And the way I see myself is like kind of bridge between these two realms. so between academia and professionals, because I can speak both languages. I've been working in academia for many years, and I've been working with people for many years. So that's how I do, also to try to avoid, greenwashing, as you asked. And greenwashing is becoming a serious threat to biophilic design, because we see every day articles and projects that define biophilic design in a wrong way. Namely, that could be filling a place with just plants, which is obviously tropical plants if you're talking about indoor spaces, or like just, coloring a space with, green color, blue color, like natural colors, which are not necessarily connected to the ecosystem outside, or like just.
It's like random implementation of green or even plants that don't match maybe the environment, the specific environment, or even brighter colors than it should be, for example, in some places like educational places or workplaces.
Yeah. So a good test to check what if a biophilic project is good is to ask ourselves, where is this project located? Imagine you don't know where the project is located, or try like not to know. So could I tell where the project is located? Which ecosystem, which culture does it belong to? And another question is that, could be this project be created and built anywhere else? So if the answers, if the second answer is no, then it's a great project. Because biophilic projects are really part of their social, ecological, cultural, geographical ecosystem. So that's a good way to assess that. But also, as I was saying, many projects look the same. We cannot really tell where they are located. And this is creating such a damage to the approach, because it's seen more like a trend and an aesthetic choice than a human physiological need. So this is a very good point. Yeah.
There are positive aspects of the global identity if we want to consider it in this perspective, to have some same projects, but it is to a certain degree. Let's say we need it because it helps people read other spaces easily at some point, but we need to project and not only project, we need to ensure space of specificity for the people, for cultural identity also, and for their personal identity, and to feel better based on their own environment. So you say you are dedicated to strengthening the bond between humanity and nature. How do you do that?
Yeah, sorry, just before I answer, I just want to refer back to what you said. I think biophilia and biophilic design conceive our relationship with the environment in a way, in a global perspective, because we all long for the same natural features. But the way because these are, this need comes from evolution. So what we need, what every cell in our body and in our brain, our neurons look for when we are in a space. But the way that these elements are then incorporated in spaces is unique for each space. So the way I bring forward my mission is developed in activities. The first one is education. So it's been many, many years that I educate people, like students, like at university level, like public or private courses. I have my own courses as well. professionals at all levels, the public, I educate at different levels around these topics because education is the first step towards change. As well as dissemination, so scientific communication through interviews, publications.
It's very important for awareness.
Yes, exactly, to raise awareness. I also do research and consulting. So these are main activities that I do, both as a, private, how do you say, like a professional, but also with the Italian Academy of Biophilia.
You are the founder of the Italian Academy of Biophilia, right?
Yeah, I'm the founder and the president. With me, there is a group of great minds and great people who established the academy, the Italian Academy of Biophilia with me. They are from different fields.
Which year did you found it?
We found it in 2024, so 1 year ago. But the project was developed over the course of a few years. It took some time to actually manifest in this organization, but I've been cultivating my network of relationships and like-minded experts around me over a few years now, as I said.
What are your latest activities?
So now I'm particularly focusing on urban biophilia because, as you know, the majority of the population lives in urban settings, and that's unfortunately only to increase in the upcoming years. So cities are becoming, for the first time in history, our main environment. And this is causing already a lot of problems. So, like mental disease, physical disease, social problems, identity problems. So many, many aspects just around the fact that we live in cities. So we go back again to, to the impact of the environment on us. So I'm really interested and I'm really focusing now on urban biophilia. So how we can access nature in the urban spaces where we live. Nature, again, is not only plants. If we go out in rural nature or wild nature, we can see there are different ways that nature expresses itself. And all these ways should be brought in our cities as much as we can. So also, for instance, including animals in our urban ecosystems. This is such an interesting topic to me, and this is going to become more and more important because human relationship with animals is very strong, is still very strong. We can see people how they behave with their pets. They're really family members, and we have such a strong bond with our pets, and that reflects the human relationship with animals, with the animal kingdom. And as we are suffering for this separation, we should take advantage and make this an opportunity. So find ways to bring more animals to our spaces, offering spaces that can satisfy their own needs as well, because they have special needs.
Because animals also can be affected by the city and its disasters. For example, after the explosion in Beirut, many pets developed a kind of PTSD, and many of them developed also cancers and some diseases, and they died. So when they hear, for example, a motorcycle, they were hiding, they were running, they were barking, they were shaking, trembling. So they can also have, and maybe in a more sensitive way and in their own way, develop this kind of traumas and, catch and absorb, let's say, the disasters and the.
This is so interesting, Maria, and it really shows and reminds us how much we unfortunately got adjusted to this sensory stimuli, which really are over the threshold of what we can consider as healthy for us. We got used to it to the point that we are forgetting what nature is. But the thing is that the environment, unfortunately, oftentimes acts in an unconscious way. Now I'm using a psychological term, but that's to mean that all these sounds, all these smells and, shapes or lack of nature, lack of natural patterns, ornaments, etc., lack of beauty, they act in a way that is unconscious to us. We don't realize the impact it's having. We will realize it one day and we will think like, oh, how could I survive in such a space? Science is there. Science is clear. Like science is already showing us the whys and the hows and the whats,
But is it really that people are used to it, or what they're doing actually is just masking it and letting their bodies for it? Because also suddenly we feel tired, we feel nervous, we develop also some diseases, and we just don't know where it came from, like suddenly. And we're not just lunatic human beings. Something must have happened to live this way or to feel this way. Most of the times, not all of the time, but most of the times. Yes.
Our brain is very plastic. That means that it's really good to adapt and change according to situations and environmental circumstances. And then we connect again evolutionary psychology and how we adapt to the environment. So think of like a situation where you are, let's say, in an office where there are not, like, you don't get on with your colleagues, some people are not so nice, and there is no natural light, and it's noisy, etc., etc. So physical and social environment. At the beginning, you notice it, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna do it. But then, day after day, you get used to it. You, at some point, forget what it was before because you need to adjust to that context in order to survive, let's say. So that's the other side of the coin of being so adaptive and so flexible, that we also adapt to the bad things for us. And another.
But I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Isn't it that we develop maybe a pattern to survive? But isn't it like after a while we will crash at some point, we will have a depression or we will have a burnout because we were just adapting, or we were, let's say, more secure or satisfied with the pattern that we developed to protect ourselves?
Yes, that's exactly how, unfortunately, how it works. So oftentimes we don't change until we get to that point. I'm not saying that it's always like this, obviously, luckily, but oftentimes we don't act in a preventive way. We act more in a reactive.
What I'm trying to clarify to the audience is that there's a difference between adapting and saying, okay, creating a frame just to feel at the moment a little bit secure, but this can lead to a harmful long-term consequences. So
Yes.
also in biophilia, the way we develop our cities, we can't just say, okay, I will not look at the bad or the wrong places or the places that cause pollution, but it will affect me at the long term.
Yes, it will affect us anyway at an unconscious level. If we live in unhealthy spaces, the environment is alive. It's not just a background. It's alive. Even our lamps that feel they don't have, a proper life. Our artificial lamps, they are alive. They will affect us in some ways. The smell of our environment, whether we like it or not, will be still processed by our brain. So if it's a bad smell, our brain will recognize it as a bad smell. Then it will get used to it. That's the thing. We get used to pollution and we tend to forget what good air is. So we develop this environmental amnesia. That's how it's called. So we forget, generation by generation, but also in our own life, what a good air is. And the impact of this in the long run is quite bad. So, because imagine recognizing every day that the air is bad. We are planned to not to to be happy in a way. We are designed not to be happy and to try, but to survive. So we really adapt constantly to our circumstances, and sometimes because the brain is structured in layers. So there are older parts that function more in a fight or flight mode. Some other parts, like the frontal cortex, that are newer and that require reasoning and thinking, the higher level of intelligence. Unfortunately, the older parts of the reptilian brain are hyperactive in cities because they are so much stimulated by all these noises, all this crowd, all these threats to the brain, that we develop stress, we develop, increased heart rate, blood pressure. So we are constantly hyperactive in terms of those parts of the brain. So we are constantly in this fight or flight mode.
Can you give us an example of, or many examples of cases of people who came to you and who have bodily reactions to what happened to the city or to the frame they live in? Or can you give us, for example, the case of a city where you saw some concerning cases of people who are affected by this phenomenon?
Okay. A word that comes to me is burnout. So we oftentimes hear about burnout among people living in cities. Obviously, this is connected to our lifestyles, our work. Having too much to do, to think, and too many tasks that our brain can handle. But at the same time, we have to take into account that our brain energy is limited. So our environment is really requiring our brain an excessive amount of energy to tackle these urban threats. So every time we hear strong noises of cars, as you were saying before, all these elements that alert us, this requires the brain energy to process them. So even just to avoid them, that's energy. So think like when you are in a, in a party, in a place, like a place in a gathering where there are many people, maybe there is music and everyone is chatting. So, that's called cocktail party effect. So when you're talking with someone face to face and you want to have a conversation with them, you're using energy to have the conversation and to, interact with them. But at the same time, the brain is using energy to map to delete sounds and interferences. So in cities, this is happening all the time. So what we're asking to our brain is really too much to process. So these are called environmental stressors. But a very important environmental stressor is the lack of nature itself. So people come to me oftentimes complaining that they feel not enough connected to nature in their spaces. And that's causing stress in itself, because with lack of nature, the brain doesn't feel safe. It reads the environment as a threat, as dangerous. So it activates the sympathetic neurological system, which is connected to higher cortisol, higher blood pressure, decreased immune system. How many people nowadays have problems with being always kind of sick, or, problems with cold, flus, or people are fatigued all the time, breathing, people who cannot sleep well, and how many people do actually work with natural light? Because we know that natural light regulates the internal body clock. Without natural light, the body clock, which is the circadian rhythm, cannot work. So the body so if light doesn't enter the eyes and then the brain, the body doesn't know which time it is, which functions to turn on and turn off, when it should feel tired, when it should feel active. And so many people have, vitamin D deficiencies, and they are fatigued. Like, these are small and bigger consequences of being away from nature and living in indoor spaces that do not connect us with nature. So this is a huge problem in cities now. And as you were saying, we are coming to realize it. So that's also an opportunity to change, finally.
What are like some small steps maybe people can do? Just easy solutions, easy small exercises or implementations.
Connect with nature, you mean, in cities?
To feel a little bit better as a first step.
All right. So we know, again, from science that even 20 minutes of contact with nature, urban nature, every day make a huge difference. So we promote with the Italian Academy of Biophilia nature prescriptions and nature daily dosage, which means we encourage people to spend at least 20 minutes, 30 would be even better, in contact with urban nature, which is, the nature that is close to them, every day. Because with 20 minutes of nature contact every day, we see major changes in the brain. So this amount of time is the minimum to allow the brain to restore cognitive functioning. So to really regenerate and replenish its energies. but also to stress levels to decrease. And this number is not, is not a random number that comes from science and comes from environmental psychology research on stress recovery properties of nature and the restorative properties of nature. So 20 minutes dose of the urban nature every day is really, like, in a way, keeps the doctor away. So that's a very good action that every one of us can engage with. And it feels like a long time, but it's not, if we try to change our lifestyle, in a way, our habits, and also try to work with close to natural light. Obviously, as you said, air, trying to open the windows quite often, trying to bring plants indoor. If we have a pet, to take care of our pet, also to increase oxytocin, which is the hormone of love and attachment that we actually produce when we are in contact with our pets. Yeah, and trying to incorporate sensory stimuli connected with nature, so smells, flavors, trying to eat also in a more biophilic way, to drink.
Touch the soft plants, for example.
Try also to work near natural elements, really increases our creativity, our productivity. Even just after a few seconds of contact with nature, our brain gets those micro regenerative experiences that allow to reduce stress and to restore cognitive functioning. So it's the brain. I feel it's so cute, but the brain is so sensitive to nature that even just a few seconds will make it happy, really. And the whole body, because we are experiencing such a nature deficit that even a few seconds would be like a treat for the brain.
Any final thoughts or message you would like to deliver?
Yes, we are particularly involved also with Biophilic Cities programs and the network. So Biophilic Cities Network is our partner, and we have promoted the first biophilic city in Italy, which is Verona, and we are really engaged with this model. We completely believe that it is possible a future with biophilic cities where obviously they will all look different, but cities where citizens, who is the majority of us, have an opportunity to interact with nature on a daily basis in an easy manner. And nature means, adopting the One Health approach. So plants, animals, different ecosystem elements. And this will change so much the way we experience our cities, our relationships, our mental health, our physical health, because at some point we will all understand and become aware of that nature is not a trend. Nature is not a nice to have. Nature is not holiday or the weekend. Nature has to be, home, as it always was in our evolution.
Rita White, thank you so much for the interesting conversation.
Thank you, Maria. It was a great pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks for watching us.